Hey everybody. So there aren't that many resources when you learn Irish to take yourself from an intermediate level to understanding native speakers at full speed. So I'm hoping with this series to change that. So in each episode, I'm going to run through like a different video clip or maybe audio clip. If you see any ones you like, fire them through to me. Particularly if they've got a bit of humor, they're a bit funny. I'll look to go through them. So I've got a fun video to start you guys off with. It's Munster Irish from the Muskerry Gaelic down in Cork, so the south of the country. There'll be a few kind of like Corkisms in the video, which I'll point out as we go along. I'll explain how they work, etc. So I'm going to link the video here. Have a look at it end to end. Don't pause it. Just try figure out what's going on, what people are saying, etc. Just try to get the gist of it and like pay attention to what people are doing, the body language, etc. And you'll get the idea pretty quick, I think. Then we'll run through it. So I'll see you back here in a minute. Okay, welcome back. Hope you picked up a few bits. Let's run through it.
Yes, Maria Vara.
You what?
Okay, so obvious enough what's going on here. They're both saying hello to each other. The guys is more straightforward. So one guy's saying, you guys have probably learned this before. It's a singular form. Hello. So literally it's something like God be with you, this kind of thing. But not really in a religious sense. It's just part of the language because of, I guess, Catholicism over the hundreds and thousands of years or whatever. So one of the guys there, he's saying Dios Morgits. So it's really common, like if you're saying hi or like replying, you can kind of throw Mary in there. So Muerta, the Virgin Mary, right? As in like Jesus' mum. If you want, you can throw like Padraig, you kind of hear him in there sometimes too, so you can throw like God and Mary and Padraig in there. One interesting thing about the way they say the name Mary there, as part of this expression, it kind of sounds like mother, but if you hear the name itself, it sounds like this.
On Weiden Wirre.
So there's a little bit of a difference just in this expression. Now, moving over to what she says, the sentence is a little bit more interesting. So she's saying, hi guys, she's using a plural form. So in Munster, you'd say Div. So the interesting thing is even though it's spelled like with the broad DH, you should say Riv, right, for that sound. But in Munster, it's actually a slender sound. So if you're up in, like I think I've heard people in Galway say like Dia Riv, right, which you'd kind of expect to be heard, or like I think in Cushartiga you kind of hear like Dia Rib. I'll try to find an audio sample and put it here.
Terrib.
If I can find one. So yeah, there's a bit of variation around the country. So the Munster form, it's actually slender at the start. I guess you could spell it literally DH like I for the BH, like phonetically. So what you do here is instead of saying dia, you kind of like get rid of the sound at the end to make it easier to say. You can still say it if you want, but you kind of ditch the sound and you say div, because it's such a common thing to say. So what she's doing here is she's throwing Mary in there as well. And she does the same kind of thing here, right? So instead of saying dia she goes dias. She kind of merges those sounds together a little bit as well. And something kind of interesting happens at the end as well. So this like ara thing, right? So what this means is men, right? It sounds awkward when you say it, but it's less awkward in Irish. So she's saying, hi men. The base form of the word is fart, right? As in man. But this is something called a vocative form, which is like how the noun changes when you're addressing somebody. I won't go into too much detail around it here, but in this case, she's forming it by putting the a particle in front of the word far, and then you put a kind of like a to sort of pluralize it at the end of the word in this particular instance. It works differently like with other nouns, but I'll link it in the description anyway, so you can check it out. So then like I suppose the question is like, how does she smash it all into one really condensed thing? So she says, Dios Morgits Vara. So what she's doing here is, so the a and the fh, and the FH is actually silent, and when you get a kind of and it's running into this vowel sound, the a for the ara, right, at the end of fara. So what she's doing is she's making the FH silent, and then she's kind of just like smashing that a sound, the particle, into the rest of the word, so you don't have this sort of like double vowel sound. Instead of saying something kind of awkward sounding like di ara, right, she's just going Dies Morgits Vara. So what she's actually doing there is she's taking the slender IBH, this Eve sound, and she's making it broad and she's running it into the rest of the word. So like I wouldn't like overthink it, but like that's what's happening from a phonetic perspective. So Dies Morgits Vara, right? And that's what she's saying.
Fheara Now for Chigali.
Okay, so this is great. She thinks she's getting a compliment. So she's kind of turning around to say, oh, hey, what are the guys saying about me? So so like, look at that, kind of the Wasser. So what do you think about her? So mass is the word for like your kind of opinion or estimate, something like that. So handy phrase to learn. Look at the preposition here as well. Like in English, you'd say, what's your opinion of her? But in Irish, you'd say, what's your opinion on her, right? So it's a different preposition. And then, no fushi gohaling, isn't she gorgeous? Isn't she beautiful? So a few kind of like Cork Kerryisms here as well. So the verb to look, right? So he's doing like an order, look at her. It sounds like this
Feich.
in Galway.
Feich.
And then in Kerry sounds like this.
Feich.
So you'll notice instead of being like feich, it's this kind of feich sound. Another Corkism here as well. So no fushi gohaling. So two actually there. If you were hearing someone in Galway say this sentence, they'd probably say nachwil, right? So they'll use nach instead of na. And na is usually used to like negate something. So like, don't do this or whatever, you'd use na there. But in Munster, you can use na instead of nach, and you don't put an aru in the next word. You just leave it as is. So instead of saying nachwil, you say nachwil. Another one there as well. So the word for beautiful, it sounds like this in Kerry.
All in.
But you can hear it here in Cork sounding gohaling. So this inn, this slender nn, is this kind of ing sound. It's like the English ing, but you make it further forward in your mouth a little bit. It's not in every word. So like a word like today, like you don't say inyo, you'd say inyo. It's just a slender N sound. So it's not all slender double N's. You still have to hear the word being pronounced.
Oh, ní dála mai. Fiachar an naig sin, na fuid se go grána. Agus na súla begad dorcha de chuirí scórat.
Okay, so they're talking about the pig. If you learn any expression, let it be ní dála mai, right? It's the most useful thing ever. It's like, I don't think so, this kind of thing, or I don't reckon so. So you notice as well, like, it's spelled D-O-F-A-I-G-H. So you'd think in Munster, they'd say ní dóig, but they don't. They say ní dóil me. And if you're further north in the country, it's kind of do-e. It's more like a this like wider E sound, like an ifada type sound. And again, you hear him say fiach a little bit instead of feach. So look at that face, feach an aiction. Look at the face of that nófuil. Again, the same thing again, the Munsterism there. Nófuil sé go grán. So I think maybe it's like a small grammatical mistake here. Someone tell me if I'm being wrong. But in English, you just say like it when you're talking about something. When you're talking about like any noun or person. But in Irish, you refer to the noun by its grammatical gender. So in this case, aig is a feminine word. So you'd say nófuil sí go grán. So yeah, some kind of fun stuff here. So he's saying agus na súla go dórcha, so like, you know, the dark small eyes, basically the kind of beady eyes, right? So you're talking about the pig, but she thinks she's going to be kind of annoyed now. So you see there the plural forms, right? So they get used bioga, dórcha, the chuirtí. So conditional, that would put fear onto you, that would make you scared. But so if you see the word there, it's spelled SCANRADH. So this means fear, right? To put fear on someone in this case. So you probably haven't heard it pronounced like this. This is a bit of a Munsterism as well. So the NR, when they come together, you don't pronounce the N basically, and it turns into this sort of like double vowely sound. So instead of saying scandra, which you might think it should sound like, if you're in Cork and Kerry, certainly this happens all the time with the NR combo. And for this word, it happens in ring. I don't know about all the time in ring, maybe less so for other words. But so you hear the scaura instead. And then you hear the earth, so on you, right, to put fear on you. But if you go back to how he pronounces it, I'll put the audio in here. But you can hear it's like one massive rolled R the whole way through. So like what's happening is you get scaura with the tapped R, kind of like a Spanish tap R, and then you get the earth as well. So instead of him trying to get like the two R sounds together with a vowel in the middle, what he's just doing is rolling straight through the word. So he's saying, I'll probably mess this up, but he's like scaurert, something more like that. Okay, so keep going.
Stágur an ceartagat. Ní ana igen rud is táchtaí mas tú cad an praisí áfiarte. Táfin na ceart na cosaí ceart golóire.
So that's great. So they're talking about her feet, right? So she's looking down at her feet. So this guy, she thinks this guy's giving her a compliment. So again, Ustoit, you know, one of the most handy expressions you can learn in Irish. Good at cartagut, so like that you have correctness, that you're right. You know, it looks like you're right. You know, ní héan aig or just táchtaí, it's not the face that's the most important thing. So the word, I guess, if you're in Go, is more like tábhachtach.
Tábhachtach.
With this V sound in the middle. But the kind of, in the middle of the word, this like broad BH is silent in Munster, so you get táchtach instead.
Táchtach.
And then, of course, the comparative form, you get the táchtaí. Then mastu kaden praisa fheara. So mastu, again, super handy expression you can learn. It's a full verb, and I guess if you're thinking about the present tense, you should be saying masantu, and you can say both. Check it in the dictionary. I'll put a screenshot here, but both forms are perfectly acceptable, and you can kind of use it on its own or at the end of a sentence as well. It's something like you reckon this, you reckon that. Also, good word here as well, ayofi artis. So this is called, I think, the servier, so the free verb. It's basically like the direct translation in English would be something like the price that one would get for her, or, you know, more colloquially, the price that you'd get for her. But you're not talking about you as in you directly, but more like the price that someone would get for her. So it's this form of the verb where there is no person associated with it. So very useful to know. And like, don't be afraid of the Mo Gaelic as well, right? So that's the conditional form. It comes up in Irish all the time. You hear it in speech from day one. And I know in secondary school in Ireland, at least, it's like something people are very, very afraid of. But I mean, get used to it. It's there. It exists. And again, so because these guys are acting on a script, I think the guy stutters a little bit here. So he says, "No Phil, the cart and the cusset," right? So I think he put in the cart as an accident, and he kind of kept on going with the sentence. So he meant to say, I think, "No Phil, the cusset cart galore," as in like, aren't her feet all right? So again, the Munsterism, "No Phil," right? The cusset cart galore, aren't they okay? So it's interesting here, right? When you're describing like someone's attribute in Irish, you use a different preposition, so you use et, right? So on her, on him, etc. And the same thing, you see this all the time in Irish, like, you know, we talked about fheara a second ago. Fheara was on her, on him, you know, aren't there nice feet on her, on him, etc.
Tá beganín rower. Díring na bhaith har trúcha póntar he. Agus fiochan tón sin atar.
Okay, so now she's getting pissed off. So a few things happening here in the first sentence. I guess the word pod. So in Munster, it's really common to combine the verb form and the pronoun together into a single word. So tod is actually essentially like a short form of táisiad, which you might hear in Galway or up in Ulster. So yeah, like this is a nice sentence. A tod begun in Raud. So they're a bit fat. So she's getting annoyed. So again, you kind of hear this, it's this ear sound again, in the same way you heard earlier for fiach, right? Works the same way. So this is all conditionals here in this sentence, right? So another Munsterism, the INN, this ing as well. So I would say that you wouldn't get more than £30 for her. So the word for 30, again, so Munster here, it's trucha. But if you're elsewhere in the country, you might hear this.
Sríocha.
So a bit of a difference there. Punt, the old currency of Ireland. So it was recently replaced by the euro. But so you'd hear punt, I think, in most of Ireland, sorry, in terms of Irish speakers. But down south you hear punt. So there's like a fada on the U, but it wouldn't be spelled like that. And again, notice the different use of the preposition. So it's the price you would get on her as opposed to the price for her, right? Last sentence is an absolute banger. So you know, look at the arse on her. If you've ever been to Ireland, this is a real, like, I guess you call it like a Hiberno Englishism, something like that, as in the English spoken in Ireland. So like, look at the arse on her, look at the face on her, etc. You kind of use like the same prepositions to describe stuff. So she's getting really pissed off now. So what's she gonna do?
Fiachtan got the flake on Madan. Male chauvinist pig.
Yeah, exactly. So she doesn't see the pig there, right? She's really, really annoyed. So what she's saying, second part's in English, right? And so male chauvinist pig. So listen to how she says stuff in English, and it's a good insight into what kind of accent she uses when she speaks Irish as well, right? You can kind of hear the accent there in her English. So obviously she's like, you know, a native English and Irish speaker, right? Bilingual, and probably from birth. So the first part of that is really, really good as well. So a few things going on here. So biach on the gut. So she's saying like, take that, you know, you have this basically. And then a flaika Ramadan. So this again is a vocative. So plaika, the word is a messer basically. And so she's kind of throwing two words together to call him like a silly fool. So you notice as well, like she doesn't say like you idiot or you idiot, but she is calling him like a name. So you use the vocative to call someone a name as well. A flaika Ramadan, and then male chauvinist pig. So that's great. And now these lads are confused, right?
Mas tú cén fágur gin sé sin.
So why did she do that? Right, again, mastu. Why do you reckon she did that? Kind of mini point here about gur yin, right? So the verb to do in Munster is actually quite regular. I'll link down below to an example of a Cork speaker going through it, but yeah, the past tense is just yin, yin. It'd almost be like, if you used to spell it phonetically, like DHIN. So instead of rinne, right, which you'd hear elsewhere, you get yin, yin she. Yep, that's what's happening there.
Ja, daar is toch een naar heen tussen we kein maar joder shin maar joder mok.
Right, this is great as well. So he's a bit confused too. He says, well, like, I don't think she likes you talking that way about pigs. So they're completely clueless. First two words in this are really, really handy. This might be a bit more of a Munsterism, but I think it'll be understood everywhere. So in the other, sounds like this everywhere.
Neader.
Neader.
Means dunno. So great sentence, and you can actually combine the two words together. So you don't need to say ni other. You can just say nader as well.
Nader.
That's really common. Nader me. Dunno, I dunno. Another great sentence, another great expression as well, along with istoilum, istoche. So like, it's likely, it's probable. So you can say like istoche will, whatever. Like, it's likely this will happen. Yeah. So he's saying a little bit of like a trip up here he does as well. So he says tussa of a kaint marjouler shin marjouler mok. So I think he means to say tussa of a kaint mar shin marjouler mok. Doesn't like you talking like that about pigs. So really, really funny. So yeah, I hope that was useful. Hope there's a few bits in there that you can take away. But like, listen back to it a few times. You know, learn some of the sentences. I'm gonna put a link to the script in the description here as well, so you can follow along with what people are saying. But yeah, hope it helps. See you later.